Are we good to go? Okay, good. Close of service, head to Connect counter in the lobby. You make sure that your name is on that clearly, and make sure that your address, and it's all good, okay? And then you get that out into the lobby, and that you'll be getting something from us this week. That's what we do when we do Family Sundays. Okay, so kids, I need you to pay attention, and then there's a fifth row. Somebody needs to keep an eye on them. Those ladies are trouble. Caught you, Nisa, and the crew. If you are a guest, there's a great Life Church mug, some information, a little bit of information, and some candy and a pin. Well, I want to take some time, and I'm going to talk to you about the supremacy of Christ. I can't believe this. I'm preaching, and it's 9:31. This is awesome. We're beginning the Christmas season. The holidays are here. I don't know if you noticed that. One thing I'm thankful for, actually, with online shopping, it seems as if the traffic isn't quite as bad as it used to be. Have you guys noticed that? I mean, I was even out on Black Friday, and it wasn't all that black, so it was, it was at least depressing or whatever, anyway. Here's my concern. My concern is always, there's some traditions that are put inside of our lives that many times are personally moving. And I know many of our families, many of you are going to go ahead and you've got little quirky things you do with Christmas. Is it 7 fishes for those of you who are Italian? Is that Christmas? Or is that New Year's? I don't get that one at all. Because what I find is half people don't like fish anyway, so what do? Chicken nuggets? Or I don't know, for those who don't. I'm just not for sure on that. I'm a Midwesterner, and we never ran into as many as Italians as out here in the Philadelphia area. Love you Italians, God bless you, okay? In our traditions, sometimes my concern is this, that things that we do with our children, perhaps sometimes, if we're not careful, the very traditions that we live out within our life, there's a possibility where it dilutes the very message and the meaning of Christmas. And I'm not one to go ahead and I'm not going to stand up here and lecture you about the mysteries of Christmas that you might weave into your children's lives. I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But what I want to weave into your life today is the deeper meaning of who this one is that we celebrate his coming and appearing. We speak of the birth of Christ, and yet the word birth, we usually think, well, that's where life begins. Yes, conception, but then it's like, and here's the appearing. And that's where life starts, and that's where we begin with our birthday celebrations. We do our best to go ahead and try to explain to our children, young ones, well, what is Christmas? And we think we're doing well when we say, well, it's Jesus' birthday. And yet children will go ahead and process that in Jesus is just like me, which in some ways is good because, yes, he is flesh and he is fully man. And he goes through the things that we go through, but he is not just like us. He is very, 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 very different. And in fact, the gospel writers speak of this, and the entire story speaks of it. We'll start with, we're going to start today just by looking at Luke chapter 2, but we're really going to focus in on about 4 verses that you will find in Colossians as the Apostle Paul speaks of this one, the Christ. Luke chapter 2, it's the 6th month of Elizabeth's pregnancy. Let's do a little bit of a history lesson. Who's Elizabeth? She's going to be a relative of Mary, and she's married to a guy by the name of Zechariah, who's a priest, and they have had a powerful encounter with an angelic being that has shown up in while Zechariah is doing temple duty, and the angel has said that his old woman wife, beyond childbearing years, is going to have a child, that there's going to be a miracle baby, and you're going to call his name John, and we're going to know him as John the Baptist. And he will be a forerunner of the Christ who will come. Now, Zechariah has a hard time believing all of this and all that's taking place, and now he is silent. And all he can do is gesture to individuals, and they know something really powerful has taken place and happened within his life. This is Elizabeth. She's the woman beyond childbearing years. She has been unable to have children, and now she is pregnant. And God sent, in that 6th month of her pregnancy, she's cloistered away, Luke speaks of. She's really gone private, but God sent the angel Gabriel to Nazareth, a village in Galilee, to a virgin girl named Mary. And she was engaged to be married to a man named Joseph, a descendant of King David. And Gabriel the angel appeared to her and said, "Greetings, favored woman, the Lord is with you." And confused and disturbed, Mary tried to think what the angel could mean. Luke attributes no words that begin to come out of her mouth. She's stunned. She's trying to figure out what is this. And immediately Gabriel responds and says, "Don't be afraid, Mary," the angel told her, "for you have found favor with God. And you will conceive and give birth to a son, and you will name him Jesus. And he will be very great and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his ancestor David." Rich, powerful words that as Mary hears and understands that what has been promised generation after generation, Messiah, the Christ, that's the Greek word, but Messiah will come, and she hears this and understands this is the child that she will bear. He will reign over Israel forever, and his kingdom will never end. And Mary asked the angel, "How can this happen? I'm a virgin. I've been with no man." And the angel replied, "The Holy Spirit will come upon you. The power of the Most High will overshadow you." What beautiful language to try to describe the mystery of how the divine seed will be planted in her womb, and she will give birth to the one like no one, fully human and yet fully God. So the baby to be born will be holy, and he will be called the Son of God. What's more, your relative, Elizabeth, has become pregnant in her old age. People used to say she was barren, but she has conceived a son, and now she's in her 6th month. The word of the Lord will never fail. By the way, isn't that a great one? Gabriel says, "The word of the Lord will never fail. What he has declared has come to pass." And Mary responded, "I am the Lord's servant. May everything you have said about me come true." And then the angel left her. Well, this is the Christmas story. It's the start. It's quite a journey. Moms and dads, I would encourage you, before you ever read to your children the wonderful masterpiece of The Night Before Christmas and All Through the House, but that you will weave the story into the lives of your children so that they understand that this is far more than just kind of the magic of Christmas, or it's the birthday of Jesus. This is the powerful move of divinity, God coming into the world. And he is going to, as John writes, chapter 1 in his prologue of his gospel, it's Peterson, his paraphrase says that before we get to the paraphrase, that he clothed himself in flesh and he moved among us. Peterson writes and says he moved into the neighborhood. He moved next door to us so we could see him and behold him. And John speaks of that. And he says, "I'm going to tell you the story, for I have beheld him. I have witnessed him. He is full of grace. He is full of truth. He is the God child." So this is what, as we enter into the Christmas season, I want to talk with you about where was Jesus before he ever came out of Mary's womb. and what was taking place. For we say this is the birth of the child, and the Scripture speaks of it, but it is not the beginning of the child. It is not the beginning of his life. We're going to talk about the pre-incarnate Christ. As we do that, we're going to talk about supremacy of Christ. Come with me to the passage that is really going to be the impetus for these next few Sundays during the Christmas season. Paul writes these. I have moved to this passage several times when we've celebrated communion together, so we understand the very table that we come to, that we remember who Jesus was, but yes, his death, but it's his resurrection, and we remember this, but we understand the supremacy of the Christ. This is a New International Version. The Son is the image of the invisible God. By essence, God is invisible. He's not limited by flesh. And yet, the Son comes and takes on the form of servant, the form of flesh. And so he comes in the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. We'll talk about that word, firstborn over all creation. In him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have the supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, and through him, Jesus, to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. Now, there's a couple of words that I want to talk with you about, word meanings here. It's really important that we get these, and the first one has to do with Christ. What is this issue of Christ? We become so casual with this one, we almost think like, yeah, well, isn't that his last name? Okay. We got Jacob, Gabriel, Michaels. Michaels is the last name. And then this just Jesus Christ. Did he have a middle name? Jesus, the Christ. Anyway, it's become familiar to us, so we use it almost as if it is a surname, the last name of Jesus, but its meaning is much richer and deeper than our usage. At the most basic meaning, what you will find in this Greek word Christ, and by the way, this is a transliteration in English. The Greek word that is used here is Christos. The Hebrew word, Mashiach, Messiah. But really, at the very fundamental root of what this means, it means anointed one. It means one who has been anointed and empowered by God himself. In the Old Testament, there were anointed ones that God had sent. And so these kinds of words that would be used even in the Old Testament, the main roles that you will find are the roles of prophet, priest, and king. So in other words, God would call individuals and he would call them with tasks to do. And so these anointed ones would come, but as the scriptures unfold, what you will find is more and more there is this deep sense of not just the kings of the moment and of the time, but there is one in the distance and he is coming. And as he comes, he will be Messiah, Greek, Christos, the Christ. So there's this deep sense of when it speaks of Jesus of Nazareth, it speaks of Jesus, and the one designation that's given him in the New Testament more than any other name, much of it by the Apostle Paul, like here in Colossians, it speaks of him as the Christ, the anointed one. Now, actually, in verse 15, New Living Translation starts with that, the Christ. But the truth is, it's going back because Paul writes in these long sentences. And 5 times, I think, in those opening verses of Colossians, it speaks of Jesus, and he is the Christ. He is the anointed one. the word in the Old Testament and in the longing of people to be delivered out of the trouble of their sin and the bondage, they longed for one who would come and follow after God and be sent by God and restore them to their rightful place as the promised people of God. And so the word began to be used as the description and the designation of the one who would come. And it were those individuals, it was the individuals who beheld him and saw him and understood as he was revealed that this is Jesus and he is the Christ. So Matthew chapter 2, verse 4, when he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christos was to be born. That was Herod. Wise men show up. Peter speaks in Matthew chapter 16 when Jesus says, "Who are they saying that I am?" And Peter responded and says, "You are Messiah, you are Christos, you are the Christ, the Son of the living God." In Matthew 26, Jesus remained silent, for the high priest, one who would be considered an anointed one, said to him, "I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, the Son of God." So this is what the meaning of Christ is. And then there's this issue of supremacy. Now, what you will find as supremacy is used in Colossians, and it speaks of this one child who's come, who's going to be born, and he will clothe himself in flesh. Paul writes and speaks of him and says, oh, you look at him, and yes, in the manger he is frail, he is tiny, he is infant flesh. Well, Paul doesn't say that, but Paul got this, where he understood that this one who comes, don't be fooled. Don't be fooled by the romance of the manger scene and the preciousness of the little one. We throw a baby picture up in the middle of a manger. All of you go, oh. Okay. Oh, but don't be fooled by him, for this is the one who has supremacy over all things. Now, he's clothed in flesh, and so he's taking on physical limits, but he is the limitless one. Supremacy, actually, and sometimes it's interpreted here, the actual interpretation is firstborn. But when we think of firstborn, we think in birth order, right? Anybody in the room, you were the firstborn in your family? Okay, a few hands. Yeah, you've steamrolled over all of us, my sister included, out there in Arizona. Well, Gene, if you're watching, love you. Some of you are middle children. Any middle children? Okay, I'm so sorry for you. You're the neglected ones. And some of you are the babies of the family, right? That's me, yeah. Okay, our hands are mixed and up, and here we are. We're in different birth orders, but this is not talking about birth order. When it speaks here of firstborn, really the best way to interpret this and understand is that there is special purpose and blessing that's upon this one. That would have been in Jewish families as they come. They were the first gift from the Lord, and they belonged to God. But the truth is, when it speaks here of supremacy or the firstborn, it speaks of the one who is preeminent, who has paramount rank, dignity, and importance. So supremacy in many ways is a great way to translate the kinds of words that are used. And don't head down the kind of error in theology that Jehovah's Witnesses will take and say in this passage, well, it says that he is the firstborn, which means he is a created being, and he is not the kind of Christ that you in traditional Christianity will have said. But that is not true, and it has to do with the understanding of the meaning. And by the way, as the Apostle Paul writes to the church at Colossae, there are false teachers who have moved into the midst, and there's confusion that's taking place. It is a church that has been actually established by one of the faithful followers of Jesus that was under the mentorship of the Apostle Paul. His name was Epaphras. And he's gone into Colossae, and the gospel has emerged, and off it goes, and the church is growing, but just like in so many other places, false teachers have come in. And one of the things they've done is they have zeroed in their false teaching concerning who this one Jesus is. And Paul comes and makes it very, very clear. Now, there's some things that I want us to comprehend and understand, that this supremacy that Paul speaks of, it's resident in the very child who comes. He is the Christ, and resident within him is this supremacy, this authority, this sense of he is preeminent, he is the one of all dignity, that he is divine. That's what it speaks of. And Paul lays out some things concerning the pre-incarnate. Incarnation has to do with when he clothes himself in flesh. Catch, here's the first one. Paul lays out very clearly in verse 15 that Jesus existed before creation. This one, the Christ, this anointed one, he has no beginning, he has no ending. He always was, he always will be. Before he is ever clothed in flesh, he is pre-existent. He has no beginning whatsoever. John 1 begins not with this birth story, but he begins his prologue. He lays out theology to those who are reading his gospel, and he begins with, in the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning, and through him all things were made, and without him nothing was made that has been made. Now we'll get to verse 3 and talk a little bit more about that, but it begins with, he is in the beginning, he is with God, and he is God. So he takes on this role of the promised one, Son of God, the Christ who will come. But that does not mean that he is created in any way. But instead, he has always existed even prior to creation. So Jesus comes and he is revealed to us. Nature, you look at creation, it reveals the existence, the power, the wisdom of God, but nature cannot reveal the very essence of God to us. It is only in Jesus Christ that the invisible God is revealed perfectly. For those of you in the room that are into a spirituality that you kind of see God in a little bit in everything, the Apostle Paul would have conflict with you and would sit down and try to persuade you that no, this one Jesus is not just like a better understanding for us in spirituality. He is the Christ, the one set by God. It is only in Jesus Christ that the invisible God is revealed perfectly. Since no mere creature can perfectly reveal God, Jesus Christ must be God. Not only does he exist before creation, but Paul lays out and he says, but he created all things. It's not like, well, the Father is the boss over it all, and so he takes care of that, and Jesus kind of sits on the sideline and says, great job, Dad. By the way, isn't it interesting that usually one of the first things we ever teach our children, we'll be teaching our children down in the preschool class, we'll talk about God made everything, and and they'll ask questions of you. Did God make this turkey that we're eating right now? What did God make? Did God make this plate? They'll have all the questions for you, and we will walk through of you. Maybe have to step back a little bit, and a few people kind of assembled it, but all things are created by him. Since Christ created all things, he himself is uncreated. The word for that introduces this verse can be translated because. Speaking of because, he has created all things. He is before all things. He has created all things. Jesus is the supreme one. He is the creator, the designer. He is the planner. He is the architect of all of that. Now, when I think of great inventors, there's two that pop in my head, probably from the American history that I grew up with. First one I think of is Ben Franklin. He's flying a kite. He invented, is given credit for the lightning rod, correct? There's some kind of a musical thing that he created. He invented the urinary catheter. That one's kind of interesting. Can be good, sometimes not good. I don't know. We live with it, but interesting things. I think of him, but I also think of Thomas Edison. He was an interesting character. So we think of, the electricity, the light bulb, and all those kind of things. James Wright may be one of the greatest inventors of all. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not. So it's back, years ago, 1943, Japan has dominated the rubber industry because they have power over that South Pacific and everything. So you've got people that are trying to figure out how can we create our own rubber. And in the middle, anyway, there's one, James Wright, and he discovered this thing, and it's really, anyway, similar, close, but it's not quite the same, and there were some properties that didn't line up. So anyway, needless to say, it was an interesting thing, because you go ahead and take it, it would bounce off the ground, it would stretch like crazy. Took it to, I think, a dinner party, and somebody grabbed onto this thing, and the adults had a blast with it. Well, you take a little bit farther down the road, and somebody began to market it. And when I was a kid, it was one of the greatest toys of all time, and it was just silly putty. And you could take that thing on the Sunday funny papers, and you could put it down, it would take the image, and there it would be, and then you could stretch it out. And it would keep me occupied for hours as we would ride home from church on Sunday. Silly putty, a wonderful thing. But I will tell you this, that the creation that Jesus has done is on a far different scale than any of the kind of things that a human inventor could ever make. We're constantly trying to figure out what this creation is all about, what the universe and universes that continue, it seems as if to expand and expand. What is taking place when Jesus created all of this creation. He did not do it by trial and error, but Jesus did it by merely speaking things into existence. And as he spoke them into existence, from light to planet Earth to the starry hosts, everything comes together, and it all works in perfect harmony. And by the way, Paul goes on and says that not only did Jesus create all things, the Christ has supremacy, that he's created all things, but also that all things exist for him. Everything exists in him, for him, through him. Jesus Christ is the sphere in which they exist, the agent through which they came into being, and the one for whom they were made. Okay? The Apostle Paul speaks of this. He uses 3 different prepositions. And by the way, it kind of lines up with Greek philosophers. It speaks of like a primary cause, an instrumental cause, a final cause. When it comes to creation, Jesus Christ is the primary cause. He planned it. The instrumental cause, he produced it. And the final cause, he did it for his own glory, for his own pleasure. That baby that's in the manger is the one pre-existent who has all supremacy, for he forever was. He creates all things, and all things exist for him and for his glory. And every creature that has been created, and all of creation, bends and bows to the Christ, the Supreme One. This is the story of Christmas. It's a miraculous thing, far more than sentiment. And the final thing that I want to bring up is this. Paul speaks and says that he holds all things together. I probably told you about my conversation with a 5th grade science teacher of my older son, Garrett. They were learning a lot about saving whales and things like that. And he'd come home one day and he says, we're trying to prepare, we're going to be training kindergartners about how to save whales. And Garrett's in 5th grade, he goes, but my teacher said that their attention span is like 30 seconds. If their attention span is only 30 seconds, how can we ever convince them to save a whale? So he's thinking through and all that kind of stuff. And I remember sitting down and speaking with teachers. And by the way, this is part of the reason that sometimes I think that we sit back and think that somehow man has so much control over everything. And I will tell you this, that I do not believe that our children, and I don't want to teach our children, my grandchildren, I don't want you to teach your kids or grandkids that they should be nervous because they live in a very frail and fragile world. Because they don't. Because there is a God who holds all things together. And as long as Jesus is the Christ, and this forever shall be, we never have to be fearful or afraid of the come what may that might happen because of some of the temporary things that are taking place. Do your best. Be good to the planet. Save the planet. But you don't hold the planet together. Nor do I, nor does anyone else. In fact, all of those who claim, who are scientists, The truth is, what they're doing the study, they're doing the investigation, they're constantly doing the math, but what they're looking for is everything that has been set in motion, that is moved forward by the Creator himself, and that he holds all things together, and they're doing their best to just try to figure out the vastness of it. Mark Batterson, pastor from down in the D.C. area, he's written a number of books, but one of the things Mark always does is he heads back and he points to science. I wasn't necessarily a science guy, did okay on the grades, but it's like it doesn't necessarily overwhelm me. But I will tell you this, that when you look at just getting down into the discoveries of how this universe and everything works, it's an amazing thing. So we have fingerprints, voice prints, eye prints. I don't know if you're aware, we even have sweat prints, Batterson says. Sweat prints. That's kind of nasty, isn't it? It's different than anybody else's. You are as unique as can be. You are on a giant merry-go-round right now called Earth that is spinning on its axis at 1,000 miles per hour. And it is speeding through space at 67,000 miles per hour. You traveled 1.6 million miles. You'll travel 1.6 million miles through space today. And the Milky Way is spinning at 468,000 miles per hour. Anybody in the room feel dizzy? There are 330 billion cells in your body that will recycle today. There are 37 sextillion biochemical reactions happening in your body every single second. If your double helix DNA were stretched end to end, it would reach the moon and back nearly 150,000 times. And with every heartbeat, 6 quarts of blood FedEx that oxygen through 60,000 miles of veins, arteries, and capillaries. The average heart will pull this off more than 2 billion times without skipping a beat. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Now, those are just things that you talk about, but you get the idea. You get the idea that we have been fearfully and wonderfully made, and by the way, parents who are in the room, teach that to your children. They are not the product of slime plus time, but they are uniquely made by God himself. The Christ has come to make known the splendor and the majesty of who he is, who our God is, come to make himself known, and we need to allow this truth to sink down inside of us. And don't allow the Christmas story to merely be passing sentiments in Christmas traditions. But I call for every single one of us into the room to enter in the sense of wonder and amazement at the magnificent one who comes in this Christmas season, that he is the Christ. He has supremacy over all things. He refuses to be contained in a little box or downsized by our religion or by any of our ideas. God is big. He is strong. He is sovereign. But he is also a God who is deeply personal. So there's a girl, Mary. She was chosen by God. He's been watching. He's been with her. And sure enough, Joseph as well. There's a little town on a hillside, Bethlehem, and it's chosen by God. Personal plan. Caesar Augustus, most powerful man in the world, declares a census. He has no idea that he is under the hand of the Creator, who is shaping and preparing the fullness of time for the Christ to come. And so the census takes place, and the couple travels to Bethlehem. This is the wonder of a God who is supreme over all things. And I want you to celebrate the Christmas season with a sense. The Christ has come. He is here in our midst. There's a song that we will sing and starts with, light of the world, you step down into darkness. Open my eyes, let me see. Beauty that made this heart adore you. Hope of a life spent with you. But it's the second verse that really captures my attention when I think about this supremacy of Christ. And Emma, you're going to help us by putting these words up. King of all days, oh so highly exalted, glorious in heaven,